What happens when Europe's harshest art critic trashes a painting at a fancy gala only to find out it's by Keanu Reeves and backed by a powerful noblewoman? Keep reading to see how one loudmouth's ego crumbles, a shy artist finds her voice, and justice sneaks up in the quietest way possible. You won't believe the twist at the end. Drop a 6 in the comments if you're hooked already, and let's dive in. The Ashbourne Art Benefit was the kind of event where power and prestige collided under one roof, all for a good cause. Or at least that's what the invitations claimed. Hosted by Lady Eleanor Ashwood, a woman whose name carried weight across England, the night promised art, charity, and a chance to rub elbows with the elite. Cars rolled up to the estate right after a rain shower, unloading guests in their finest threads. Among them was Keanu Reeves, slipping in without a fuss. He wore faded jeans, a creased black button-up, and scuffed boots, hardly gala material. In his hand was a glass of water, his only accessory, as he wandered toward a small painting on the wall. It was raw, with bold swirls of indigo and crimson, flecked with ash marks that looked like scars. He stood there, staring at it, head tilted like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Then came Dr. Victor Langston, strutting in at 7:44 p.m., just late enough to turn heads. His charcoal suit fit like a second skin, his rimless glasses catching the light like a predator's eyes. Victor wasn't just an art critic, he was a legend in his own mind, the guy who'd shredded careers with a single sentence. He waved off a waiter's champagne offer and zeroed in on the room, smirking like he owned it. "Another night of mediocrity," he said, loud enough for a couple nearby to glance over, half nervous, half curious. His gaze landed on the painting Keanu was studying. Victor stepped up, hands clasped behind his back, and let out a hum that sounded more like a jab. "Well, well," he said, his voice carrying across the chatter. "Every gala's got its token disaster, right?" Keanu didn't budge, but a few people turned. Victor leaned in, eyeing the ash marks. Bold strokes? Burn marks? How avant-garde? Or maybe someone just dumped their trauma and slapped a price tag on it. Keanu looked at him, voice low and even. "Sometimes trauma's the point." Victor's brows shot up, like he'd just been challenged by a kid with a crayon. "Oh? You a critic too?" "Nope," Keanu said, sipping his water. "Just looking." Victor let out a sharp laugh, the kind that demanded an audience. "Then let me school you. This," he waved a hand at the canvas, "is a mess pretending to be meaning. Amateur at best, therapy at worst." Keanu's lips twitched, almost a smile. Maybe the world could use some therapy. Victor froze for a split second, thrown off by the calm comeback, then he smirked, recovering fast. "Touching. Let's hope nobody bids on this out of pity." He yanked out his phone, snapped a quick photo of the painting, and started typing, probably some snarky post for his army of followers. Keanu stepped aside, letting him work, like the whole exchange was just background noise. Across the room, Clara Hensley watched it all unfold. She was a young artist in a plain gray dress, clutching a program like it was a shield. She painted too, but never dreamed of showing her stuff here. Victor's words hit her hard, like they were aimed at her own doubts, but Keanu's quiet stance pulled her in. She wanted to say something, anything, but her voice stayed locked up. The room buzzed with low chatter, the kind that builds before something big. A staff member nearby muttered into an earpiece, "Lady Eleanor's on her way." Keanu took another sip of his water, eyes still on the painting, like he hadn't even noticed the storm brewing around him. Victor, meanwhile, kept typing, his smirk growing as he hit send. Whatever he'd posted, it was already lighting up screens, likes and comments rolling in from curators, collectors, and art world wannabes who lived for his takedowns. He slipped his phone back into his pocket, glancing around to make sure people saw him in his element. Clara shifted her weight, torn between stepping closer and fading into the crowd. She caught Keanu's eye for a second. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just held her gaze like he knew she was there. It was enough to keep her rooted. Victor, oblivious, turned to a guy next to him, a wiry art dealer named Miles, and muttered, "Poor guy looks like he got lost on his way to a coffee shop poetry night." Miles chuckled, too quick, too eager to please. The air crackled with tension, subtle but real. Victor thought he was running the show, but something was shifting. Something he couldn't see yet. Keanu stayed still, water glass in hand, like he was waiting for the real night to kick off. And it was about to. Victor Langston swept through the crowd like he was the king of the night, his sharp voice cutting through the hum of chatter. He stopped at a watercolor, loud enough for everyone to hear. Overdone colors, looks like a kid's finger painting. Then at a bronze bust, derivative. I've seen this 100 times. People nodded, some laughing nervously, drawn to him like he was a magnet. His phone was out again, glowing as he typed, "Ashbourne benefit, burnt canvas, and misplaced angst. Art or accident?" He hit send, and within minutes his followers, curators, collectors, art snobs lit it up with likes and comments. Victor soaked it in, loving every second of being the loudest guy in the room. Keanu Reeves, though, was the opposite. He drifted over to a sculpture, 3 rusted iron beams leaning together like they'd fallen in a storm. He stood there, quiet, just taking it in. No phone, no noise, just him and the art. Victor's voice floated over again, sharp and mean. "Who let this scrap heap in here?" he said, smirking at Miles, the art dealer shadowing him. "Pity bids incoming, mark my words." The words stung the air, and Clara Hensley, standing nearby, felt them deep. She was shy, her gray dress plain against all the fancy outfits, but she loved art more than anything. She whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "I think it's striking." Victor spun toward her like he'd caught a mouse in a trap. "Striking?" he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Like a stubbed toe. Hurts for a second, then you forget it." Clara's cheeks burned red, and she stepped back, mumbling, "Sorry, You don't need to say sorry," Keanu cut in. Soft but steady, not even looking up from the sculpture. "It's your eyes that matter." Clara froze, her heart thumping. Someone had heard her, really heard her, and it wasn't just anyone. Victor's eyes narrowed, zeroing in on Keanu. "You again?" he snapped. "Defending another flop? What's your deal? Some wannabe artist with a savior complex?" Keanu shrugged, calm as ever. "Not defending, just seeing." Victor laughed, loud and fake. "Oh, spare me the deep thoughts. If you love this junk so much, why not say you made it? Own it, mystery man." Keanu met his stare, not blinking. "Some things don't need owning." The words hung there, simple but heavy, and Victor didn't know what to do with them. He scoffed, turning to Miles. "This guy looks like he wandered in from a poetry slam, probably scribbling sad lines in a notebook somewhere." Miles laughed, too fast, too loud, trying to stay on Victor's good side. But the room felt different now. Clara stayed put, her hands trembling around her program. Keanu's quiet strength made her feel braver, like maybe her voice wasn't so small after all. Victor's post was blowing up online. Langston nails it again, but one comment stood out. "Careful, Victor. Not everything's yours to judge." He saw it, brushed it off, and grabbed a wine glass, sipping like he was untouchable. Whispers started creeping through the crowd. "Lady Eleanor's bringing someone big tonight," a guy in a tux muttered to his date. "Heard it's a surprise donor or something." Victor smirked, adjusting his cufflinks, sure he'd still be the star no matter who showed up. Keanu moved to an ink drawing, its edges torn like it had been ripped from something bigger. He stood there staring at it like it was telling him a story only he could hear. A volunteer, Mrs. Beatrice, shuffled over with the tray of name tags. She was older, her smile warm and tired. "You been here a while," she said to Keanu. "Long enough," he replied, his voice low. He said something else, too quiet to catch, and she laughed, a real, bright sound that cut through the tension. Victor saw it from across the room, and his grip tightened on his glass. That laugh, that moment, it bugged him. "Who is this guy?" he muttered to Miles. "Gold badge," Miles said, nodding at Keanu's tag. "Royal guest, maybe?" Victor snorted. Standards are dropping fast. But deep down, something gnawed at him. Keanu wasn't loud, wasn't flashy, but people were starting to notice him. The lights dimmed a little. Chandeliers flickering like a signal. A bell chimed, soft but clear, and heads turned toward the big doors at the end of the hall. Clara held her breath. Victor squared his shoulders, and Keanu just stood there, water in hand like he knew something the rest of them didn't. And this was a big room. He knew something the rest of them didn't. The night was about to crack wide open, and it was going to hurt some more than others. The room went still as the big doors swung open, and Lady Eleanor Ashwood stepped in. She wasn't loud or showy, just a woman in a dark blue dress, her silver hair pulled back, carrying a quiet kind of strength. Everyone straightened up, phones disappearing into pockets, like kids caught talking in class. Victor Langston adjusted his stance, making sure he'd catch her eye. Keanu Reeves stepped back a little, still holding his water, blending into the shadows like he didn't need the spotlight. Eleanor walked to a podium, the crowd parting for her, and when she spoke, her voice was warm but firm. "Good evening," she said, and a few people sighed, like just hearing her made them feel safe. "Thanks for coming out tonight. This isn't just about art, it's about giving kids a shot at something better. The Ashbourne Youth Fund is here because of you." The room clapped, Victor loudest of all, his hands smacking together like he wanted a medal for it. He leaned to a woman next to him and whispered, "Here comes the donor list. Watch the real show start." He smirked. Sure, he'd stay the big shot. But Eleanor didn't roll out names like he expected. She smiled, softer this time, and said, "There's someone here tonight who's given more than just cash. He's given art, heart, and a whole lot of hope, without making a fuss about it." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Victor sat up straighter, thinking it'd be some rich guy he could out-talk later. Clara Hensley clutched her program tighter, her stomach twisting with nerves and a flicker of something like hope. Then Eleanor dropped the bomb. "Let's give a hand to Keanu Reeves, artist behind some of tonight's best pieces and our biggest private donor." The air sucked out of the room. Then came gasps, murmurs, heads whipping around. Victor's face froze, his wine glass halfway to his lips, like he'd been slapped. Keanu stood where he'd been all night, near that rusted sculpture, and gave Eleanor a small nod. The clapping started, polite at first, then loud, rolling through like thunder. He walked toward her, no rush, no big grin. They shook hands and she said, he didn't want to talk tonight, typical Keanu, but his work says it all. The crowd cheered again, and Clara's eyes welled up, her hands shaking as she joined in. Victor's brain spun like a car with no brakes. Every snarky word he'd thrown at that painting, Keanu's painting, slammed back into him. "Did you know?" Miles whispered, half laughing, half shocked. Victor couldn't even grunt a reply. His eyes locked on Keanu, who stood there calm as ever, like none of this was a surprise. The room was buzzing now, people pointing, whispering. "That's him? The guy in the jeans?" Clara wiped a tear, feeling something big shift inside her, like maybe she wasn't so invisible after all. Victor shot to his feet, his voice slicing through the noise. "This is ridiculous," he yelled, and heads turned. "He's no artist, prove it." Eleanor raised an eyebrow, cool as ice. "The KR on that canvas isn't enough for you?" she said. Victor wasn't backing down. "Then let him explain it." He spun to Keanu, pointing like a prosecutor. "Defend that trauma piece you're so proud of. Go on." Keanu looked at him, steady and quiet. "It doesn't need defending," he said. "It just is." "That's not an answer," Victor shouted, his face red now. People gasped, some leaning forward, others pulling back. "You're a fraud, a fake." Eleanor stepped in, voice sharp. "Victor, sit down. His donation receipts are real, unlike your manners." A ripple of laughter broke out, soft but biting, and Victor's chest tightened. He stood there, breathing hard, as Keanu stepped back from the podium, letting the moment settle like dust after a storm. Claire watched it all, her heart pounding. She'd never seen anyone stand up to Victor like that, not with fists or yells, but with calm. It hit her deep, like a light flicking on in a room she'd kept dark. Across the room, Miles nudged the woman next to him, whispering, "Langston's toast." Victor heard it, and his hands clenched. He'd spent years building his name, tearing down anything that didn't fit his rules. Now it was cracking, and the guy breaking it didn't even raise his voice. Keanu nodded once more to Eleanor, then walked back to his spot, water glass still in hand. The applause faded, but the air felt heavy. Everyone knew something big had just happened, and it wasn't over yet. The room flipped like a switch after Lady Eleanor's words. People turned away from Victor Langston, their eyes chasing Keanu Reeves instead. He didn't bask in it, just stood near that rusted sculpture, nodding when someone spoke to him, his water glass still in hand. Guests crowded around, voices soft with awe. "That painting's his?" one woman whispered. "He's the donor too?" a guy added, shaking his head like he couldn't believe it. Clara Hensley stood off to the side, her program crumpled in her fists, tears streaking her face. She wasn't sad, just overwhelmed, like something inside her had finally woken up. Victor sat back down hard, his chair creaking under him. His wine glass stayed untouched, his hands locked together like he was holding himself in place. The noise around him, claps, murmurs, laughs, felt like needles. He'd ruled rooms like this for years, cutting down art and artists with a smirk and a quip. Now the crowd didn't even glance his way. His phone buzzed on the table, lighting up with notifications. He peeked, comments on his post had flipped. Langston's clueless. Keanu's the real deal. Each one twisted the knife deeper. He shoved the phone away, jaw tight, and stared at Keanu. The guy hadn't said much, hadn't fought back, and still won everything. Victor's chest burned. He couldn't let it end like this. He stood again, legs shaky but voice loud. "He tricked you all," he yelled, pointing at Keanu. Heads turned, some annoyed, some curious. "That painting's a stunt, admit it." Keanu looked up, calm as ever, like he'd been waiting for this. "I painted what I felt," he said. "Lies," Victor snapped, stepping closer. "You're no artist, you're a fake, playing a part. Show me proof." Keanu reached into his pocket, slow and steady, and pulled out a folded paper. He held it out, a receipt, creased but clear, showing his donation, signed with his name. "This enough?" he asked. Victor snatched it, eyes darting over the lines. The room went quiet, everyone watching. "It's fake," he stammered, but Miles leaned over, squinting. "Looks real, Victor, give it up." Victor's hands shook, the paper slipping to the floor. People murmured, a few shaking their heads. He'd lost, and they all saw it. Clara stepped forward then, her voice wobbly but there. "You mocked me too, Dr. Langston," she said, loud enough to make him flinch. "Called my taste forgettable. But Keanu saw something in that painting. Maybe you're the one who can't see." Victor glared at her, his face a mix of anger and shock. "You're nobody," he hissed. "She's enough," Keanu said, firm and quiet. The words landed like a punch, and the room clapped again, louder this time. Clara's eyes shone, her shoulders straightening. Victor's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He turned and stormed off, shoving past people, his fancy suit looking small as he disappeared through the crowd. Keanu turned to Clara, his voice low. "Keep painting," he said. "You've got fire in you." She nodded, tears spilling again, but she smiled. A real one, small but strong. Lady Eleanor joined them, leaning in to whisper something to Keanu. He nodded, and she smiled too, like they shared a secret. The room buzzed around them, people talking about Keanu now. His art, his gift, his quiet way of being. "He's been here the whole time," a woman said nearby. "Didn't even brag," her friend replied. It was warm, real, the kind of talk that sticks with you. Victor's world shrank as he hit the edge of the room. No one followed him, no one cared. He'd spent the night tearing things down, thinking it made him big. Now he was nothing. Just a loud guy nobody listened to anymore. His phone kept buzzing, but he didn't look. He could feel the shift, the way people leaned toward Keanu like he was a light they hadn't noticed till now. Clara wiped her face, standing taller, like she'd found a piece of herself she didn't know was missing. Keanu stayed where he was, listening to a guy who'd approached him, nodding like every word mattered. It hurt to watch. Victor wouldn't admit it, but it did. He'd built his life on being the sharpest, the loudest, the one who decided what was good. Keanu didn't decide anything. He just was, and that was enough. The room kept moving, laughing, clapping, but Victor was outside it now, a ghost in his own story. He'd pushed too hard and it broke him. Clara's words echoed in his head, and Keanu's too. Simple, true, cutting deeper than any insult he'd ever thrown. The night wasn't done, but for Victor, it felt over. The gala slowed down, the crowd thinning out like a tide pulling back. People drifted toward the doors, their voices soft with wine and wonder. Victor Langston stood alone near a hallway, his reflection staring back from a big fancy mirror. His suit was still perfect, his glasses sharp, but his eyes looked hollow. The buzz of his phone, texts from assistants, maybe, a PR person trying to fix the mess. Felt like flies he couldn't swat away. He didn't check it. The room behind him had changed. He'd walked in thinking he was the center, the guy everyone needed to hear. Now it barely noticed he was gone. Back in the hall, Keanu Reeves stayed a little longer. He stood by a small watercolor painting tucked in a corner, one most people had skipped. He didn't say anything, just looked at it like he was saying goodbye to an old friend. Clara Hensley lingered nearby, her program folded in her hands. She'd stopped crying, but her face glowed with something new. Hope, maybe, or courage she hadn't had before. Lady Eleanor walked over, her steps quiet but sure. "You did good tonight," she said to Keanu, her voice low. He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Just glad it helped," he said. She patted his arm, then headed off to talk to some stragglers. Victor took a deep breath and turned back toward the room. He couldn't leave like this, beaten, forgotten. He had to fix it, even just a little. He walked in, head up, looking for Keanu. "Reeves!" he called, his voice rough but loud. People glanced over, but Keanu wasn't there. He'd slipped out, quiet as ever, leaving no trace. Victor's stomach dropped. He spotted Clara instead, standing by that painting he'd trashed, the one with the ash marks. She held a note, reading it, her lips moving slightly. Victor stepped closer, softer now. I misjudged," he said, the words tasting bitter. "Tonight, you, him." Clara looked up, surprised, then nodded. "Maybe next time, listen first," she said. It wasn't mean, just true. Victor flinched, but he didn't argue. He didn't even stay to rub it in," he muttered, almost to himself. "I didn't need to," Clara said, tucking the note away. It was from Keanu. She didn't say it, but Victor could tell. Her eyes were bright, like she'd found something worth holding on to. "What'd he write?" Victor asked, curious despite himself. "To keep going," she said simply, "that the world needs my voice." Victor swallowed hard. He'd spent years drowning out voices like hers, thinking it made him strong. Now he saw it. Keanu hadn't won by fighting. He'd won by lifting others up, by being real. Victor turned away, his throat tight. "He's gone?" he asked. "Yeah," Clara said. "Left a minute ago." Victor nodded, slow, and walked back to the hallway. He pulled his invitation from his pocket, creased, a little torn. On the back, in silver writing, it said, "Come to see what moves you." He stared at it, the words sinking in. He'd missed it, chasing clout instead of meaning. He folded it up and slipped it back in his pocket, a quiet promise to himself. Outside, Keanu walked across the gravel, his boots crunching soft under the night sky. He didn't look back, didn't need to. He'd done what he came for, gave some art, some cash, some heart. And that was enough. Back inside, Clara stayed by the painting a bit longer, the note in her hand like a spark. She'd paint again tomorrow, and the next day, because someone believed she could. The room emptied out, the music fading, the lights dimming slow. Victor stood in the hallway, alone with that mirror again. He didn't yell, didn't cry, just stood there, feeling the weight. He'd been loud all night, but no one cared by the end. Keanu had been quiet, and everyone listened. That's what got him. The silence wasn't weak, it was power, the kind he'd never understood. He whispered to his reflection, "Sometimes you're not silenced. You're just not heard anymore." It hurt, deep and real, but it was true. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door. No one followed, no one waved. The doors shut behind him with a soft click, and the night moved on without him. Clara would keep going, stronger now. Keanu would keep giving, same as always. And Victor, he'd carry this night like a scar. Ugly at first, but maybe it'd teach him something. Justice didn't shout or point fingers. It settled quiet, letting the right people rise and the rest figure it out. The estate went dark, and the story ended, not with a bang, but with a whisper that stuck. Watching Victor crumble and Keanu shine, I can't help but think, sometimes we're all too quick to judge what we don't get. Victor's loudness felt familiar, like those times I've talked over someone just to feel big. But Keanu's quiet hit harder. It's the strength I wish I had when life gets messy. Clara's spark, though, that's what stuck with me. Finding your voice when someone believes in you. Maybe you see it differently. Maybe Victor deserved a louder fall, or Keanu should have fought back. What do you think? Is silence stronger than words, or just a fancy way to dodge a fight? I'd love to hear your take. Drop it in the comments. Thanks for sticking with this story. It means a lot. Hit like, share, and subscribe for more tales that make you feel and think. See you next time.